everyone, happy Friday and welcome to another episode of the Creatives Connect webinar series. My name is Dalia and today I have a very exciting topic for us as always. Now, today's topic is one that I am especially passionate about because I would say it's something that I've literally built almost my entire career around. So you're going to see that in just a second, but today it's just me. So today we do not have any guests with us. But as always, we're going to have fun. We're going to get right into it. And it's going to be a shorter episode because it's just me. But anyways, we're going to have fun. So let's just get right into it. Today, we're going to be talking about building a profitable business around your creative talent. This is one that I know that it's not only high in demand, and there's a reason why it's high in demand, because a lot of people have so many things that they just feel like, I could be making money from this. Have you ever had something like that where you're kind of like, I know how to do this thing really well, and like you're either thinking to yourself like, I could be making money from this, or actually you see other people making money from it and you're just like, I could be making money from this. But anyways, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to walk us through I think today is going to feel more of a workshop, more of a master class than just a webinar, because I want us to get really practical and really into it. This is going to be a very practical session. So if you don't already have your pen and paper, this is the time you want to go and get that pen and paper. So without further ado, let's just get started. Now, the very first thing or the very first step, remember, like I said, this is going to be a very practical. If you want to even start practicing right now, let's do it together. So the very first step is to narrow down your talent. The reason I have talent in double quotes is because it's one thing to have a talent, but it's another thing to have a profitable talent. Remember, the title of today's session is building a profitable business. In order to build a profitable business, you need a profitable talent. We all have different things that we can do, and you can consider it a talent. You can be like, oh yeah, nobody else can do this thing, so it's kind of unique to me. It's kind of, intriguing to other people. It's like a party trick. But is anybody going to pay you for a party trick? Really? It's like you go to a party, right, and someone is like, oh, I know how to, that thing that people do where they can move their eyes to the back of their heads or move their eyes like way above, and it's like, oh, that's a very fun party trick. But is anybody going to pay for that, right? Is that even considered entertainment that somebody would be able to pay for, as opposed to an actual talent? Oh, I know how to draw. I know how to, I'm artistic. I know how to create a very beautiful painting. I can sit down here and just look at someone and just create a picture of them. That is a talent that someone would be willing to pay for. So the very first step, like I said, is you want to narrow down your talents. What that simply means is, like I've said, consider because a lot of us, we have a lot of talents, or all of the things that you would consider to be a talent, and ask yourself the question, will anyone be willing to pay for this? Realistically, honestly, would anyone, or even start from yourself, would I be willing to pay for this if it were someone else doing it? Because that's how you can start to build out and start to really define what is a profitable talent versus what is just a party trick or something fun that you know how to do. So the very first step is you really want to narrow down, what is my talent? What is my profitable talent? The second thing that you want to do, now that you have kind of like you've narrowed down your talent, is you want to define your ideal buyer. The word ideal is very important here because you want to be specific as to who exactly needs this thing, right? In an ideal world, who would be willing to pay for it? The reason we say ideal is because it's not to say that, someone outside of that, if you think of your ideal audience as, inside this small subset of people, it's not to say that anyone outside of that, they don't need your, they wouldn't need your talent, they wouldn't be willing to pay for it. But it's just to say, in an ideal world, who would be willing to pay for this? Because then you can move to the next step. But before we get there, you just want to sit down with that thought and think about, ideally, who would be willing to pay for this? So given the previous example of, let's say you are artistic and you know how to paint, so now who would be willing to pay for a painting of you actually sitting down and creating like a portrait of them or something like that, why wouldn't they just go to the supermarket and buy it? So you want to sit down and think, okay, who are the people really that would want like a live drawing of themselves? Like they would maybe invite me to their home or their office, and they will be willing to sit down and actually. So now you're thinking about somebody that actually has the time to sit down, and then you create a portrait of them, right? So you really need to narrow down into who exactly is the ideal person here that would be willing to pay for this. So that's the second step, is making sure that you understand who they are. Things that come into play here are things like, you may have heard of things like demographics and psychographics. Demographics are simply trying to understand certain, I would say, specifications about your ideal audience. Classic example is their gender. Are they male or female? Another classic example is an age group. All of these things are considered demographics. How old are they? Where are they most likely to be found? Such as, do they live in big cities? Do they live in smaller towns? All of these things that come into what you would consider demographics. How old would this person be? You don't need to necessarily have specifics, but you can kind of categorize it and say, okay, I'm thinking about someone that will be willing to pay for that. Maybe they're millennial, so they're at least 27, 28 years old up until 40 years old or whatever, or is it an older audience, maybe between the ages of 51 and 60? All of these details you have to figure out for yourself. It is very important. I think one of the things that people struggle with is they skip this step of really understanding, who am I selling to? They just feel everybody will buy my product. It's so easy, right, to just jump to the conclusion and say everybody will be willing to pay for that. But really, no. If everybody can pay for that, you're setting yourself up for nobody to pay for that. If everybody can do it, nobody's going to do it. So you, as the business owner, as a potential business owner, you want to be certain as to, having an idea of who exactly is going to buy this. So like I said, demographics and psychographics. The first step is demographics. So demographics, working out things like their age group, their gender, where they live, stuff like that. Psychographics is now really getting into the nitty-gritty of it. I like to think of psychographic as a psychological analysis. So now you're kind of getting into their head. What would be important to such a person, right? Do they value family? Do they value their self-image? Do they value, surrounding their home with beautiful things so that they have the right energy, and they have, all these kind of things come into play. So I'll give you a classic example. So imagine a wedding photographer. When you see or you look at wedding photographers that charge, hundreds of thousands of naira, or, hundreds of thousands of dollars, as opposed to someone that would just be like, no, it's not that important. Just, I can get any photographer to just come and capture the day. As long as we have photos, that's all that matters. It's the difference between these two categories of people is the psychographics, is the things that they value. The one person that's thinking to themselves, I'm willing to pay so much money for wedding photography, is because they value that. They're thinking about, I want to really capture this day in the best way possible, both in photographs and in videos. They may even get a videographer because that's something that they value. It's important to them to really have like a visual image of that day locked, as opposed to someone else that, it's not a bad thing, right? They may just be like, oh, it's fine. Like, I was there, I attended the wedding, it's my wedding. So as long as I just have a good photo of myself and my partner, then I'm fine. So it's the mindset. So when you're thinking about psychographics, especially for this, your potential business, you want to get into the person's mindset for whatever talent it is that you have. One of the talents that I had that I kind of monetized and built a profitable business around was content. So I'm very good in writing content for other business owners. One of the things that came to mind when I was thinking about psychographics is people that value time. They don't want to spend so much time sitting down, racking their brain, trying to come up with content ideas, trying to create the content, all of that long journey. To them, it feels like it's a lot. Like, I would rather spend that time doing something else. I would rather, so that is one of the things I was like, yes, that's my ideal audience. The person that doesn't want to spend so much time doing something that they don't absolutely have to do. You can have someone else write your content for you. It's very normal for business owners to do, as opposed to somebody else that maybe they may value time, but they value money more. So they would rather, no matter how long it takes, they will sit down there and they'll rack their brain and they'll write the content and they'll move on. Do you see the difference? So this is why it's really important that you're able to define your ideal buyer. The reason I use the word buyer, sometimes you may hear ideal audience or target audience. We're talking about sales here, and I don't joke with money. I'm very passionate about understanding the difference between a buyer and an audience. You can have, it's that thing about followers versus buyers. You can have thousands of followers, you can have so many people in your community. Are they actually buyers? Because there's one thing to have a lot of people that support you, there's one thing to have a lot of people that are like cheerleaders, as opposed to people that are willing to pay money for this product. This is why it is so important to understand both demographics and psychographics. I would argue that psychographics is even more important, because when you really get into someone's head, you understand the things that they value, you understand the things that they would be dedicating themselves to, you understand certain patterns that they may have, what are the conversations that go on in their head. That's when you can really kind of know how best to position this your talent or this your product or this your idea for them to buy. And that then kind of moves us into our third step, which is finding the sweet spot. Now you have your talent, your profitable talent, and now you know who your buyer is. You need to bring that together and kind of find the sweet spot. I'll give you an example of myself. I kind of talked about the fact that one of my unique talents is content creation. I can sit down right now and map out content for an entire year, like off the top of my head. Depending on the business, I may need to do a little bit of research for it, but it's one of the things that I identified early on, and I was like, oh, I'm really good at creating content, whether that's video, audio, whatever kind of content. I'm very good at coming up with content ideas. I'm very good at content strategy. Anything content, I'm right there. Okay, who are the people that need that service? It's business owners. It is other content creators too, because sometimes even content creators, they work with other content creators to come up with their content. It all depends on what you value as an individual, as a business owner, right? Okay, so let's say my target audience or my ideal buyer is other business owners, especially I would say new business owners who are struggling to either come up with content ideas, or new business owners who are struggling to actually work out their content strategy. Everybody's saying to them, you need to post on social media, you need to post on social media. And they're kind of like, okay, yeah, but like, what do I post on social media? That's my ideal buyer. Now, how do I find the sweet spots to kind of work out what my offer is here? This is where you now start to think about what exactly are you offering, right? It's at this point that you now define what your business model is going to be. You cannot have a business without defining what the business model is. In other words, what are people paying you for? If you're saying, I want to have a profitable business, what are they giving you money for? This is not a scam ring that we're running here. If business is exchange of money for goods or services. So if I'm giving you my money, what exactly am I getting back in return? So do you want to now kind of at this point you now define, okay, I want it to be a service-based business. So that means that I offer certain services for certain kinds of payment. So that may be photography, that may be painting, that may be literally anything, any kind of service that you can offer. I like to argue that service-based businesses are the easiest to monetize, especially if you are starting from ground zero. In other words, zero investments. I have no money. I just want to start something in order to make money. If you're starting a product-based business, ideally, except if you want to kind of get into what's this called now, drop shipping or things like that, ideally you want to have a little bit of money in the bank. But with service-based businesses, you can literally start from zero. You don't need to have anything. Now, this is not to say that it is the only way to make money. If you want to create a product-based business, that's totally fine. But since we're talking about monetizing your talents, I am going to assume that we're talking about services here. So it's a service-based business, but still, what does that look like? Because even if you take something like photography, for example, photography as a service can be you actually shooting the photos, like, showing up to someone's, whether it's an event or whatever, and shooting the photos, but also it can be you teaching other people. That is also a talent. Maybe if you've been a photographer for a while now and you have the amazing, blessed talent of teaching. I say blessed because it's not easy to teach. I know this. It's not even everybody that can teach that somebody else will understand. Some people can talk and talk and talk, and you're just like, I don't understand what this person is saying. So in finding the sweet spot, you really want to define what your business model here is. Whatever you want to drill down to the question, what exactly am I getting paid for? Right. So even if, like I explained, even if it's something like photography that it may seem very basic, what exactly does that entail? Does that entail you capturing photos, or does that entail you teaching someone else photography? Even if you say it entails you capturing photos, what kind of photographer are we talking about? Are we talking about a fine art photographer? Are we talking about a wedding photographer? Are we talking about a portrait photographer? Are we talking about a documentary photographer? You see that no matter what skill you are picking, no matter what talent you're picking, you really have to be very careful as to what exactly it is you're doing. I'll give you again the example of myself. Me saying, oh, I create content, that's my talent that I can get monetized. But what does that mean exactly? Am I talking about blog content now? Am I talking about, now I can decide to do everything if I want to, but it's very important that you define what exactly it is. Is it blogs? Is it social media? Is it videos? Are you willing to show up on camera for someone else? Because if you just show up and say, oh, I create content, we don't know what that means. So you're going to pardon someone for thinking that you are referring to video or whatever. So like I said, it's very important that you define what your business model is at this point, down to the nitty gritty, so that if you were to have a potential client or customer come up to you tomorrow and say, oh, what do you do? How are you going to answer that question? So that is you working out your offer. It is also at this stage that you can decide to create kind of packages, for example. So as a content creator, for example, I can say, oh, I want to have maybe an email package where I get paid to write emails for other people, or I want to have a blog package where I get paid to write blogs for other people. All of this is what is going into your business plan. This is basically your business plan, right? So that at the point that you now get to meeting real people, having customers, and they're asking you all these questions, you're able to answer it. You can define packages, and then you want to define your pricing. Pricing is one place that a lot of people struggle, because they're kind of going, okay, I'm just new to this. I have no idea how much do I charge. The easiest way to answer this question is to look at what other people are doing. If you're a photographer, for example, if you're a graduation, let's say you want to specify on graduation photography or anything regarding schools, look at what other people charge. Now, I would say have a high end and a low end. So what is the highest amount that's, is reasonable photographer has charged for something like that? And what's the lowest amount that they have charged for something like that? What were all the factors involved? Because again, you want to be certain about those details. Maybe someone charged 100,000 naira for like a physical, you get the actual photography, but you also get like a physical portrait. Or maybe someone else would charge 30,000 naira for just the digital, they just give you the JPEGs or whatever, and you don't get anything physical. So you want to look at what other people are doing, and then you want to find a good balance. I would always say start a little bit, a little bit. I'm not saying undercharge yourself. Start a little bit on the lower end. The reason is because that allows for you to be approachable, and that gives you room to grow. Right? If you just start up your business and you are so expensive, it's going to be difficult for you to increase your prices at any time because you're already so expensive. People already cannot even afford you. But again, understanding your ideal buyer comes into play here, because when you understand your ideal buyer, you kind of know what is affordable for them and what is expensive for them. If you do decide that your ideal buyer, maybe they are working class in, so they can afford 100,000 naira, that works for you. Maybe you decide your ideal buyer, you want to start with people that are just starting out. So in my case, I decided I want to start with business owners, especially startups. Maybe they don't have too much money to invest in content, especially at the beginning. So I am not making it so cheap that I am on the charging myself, but also I'm not making it so expensive that my ideal buyer cannot afford it. And that then also gives me room that every couple of months or every year or every 2 years, based on my services, I can say, okay, I need to increase my prices. I need to increase my prices. So all of these things are what needs to come into play for you to find your sweet spot, define your offer, and then we can now move on to the next step, which is getting started with your first set of clients. How do you find your very first clients? There are a couple of ways that you can do this. Some of them I would recommend, some of them I wouldn't recommend too much. One simple method which a lot of people recommend is just start out for free. Just find, if you are a content creator, for example, that's your talent, you can just start out for free. Just find a couple of people or find one person and say to them, oh, I'm willing to do this for you for free, and in exchange, it's not 100% free, please, disclaimer, in exchange, maybe I get a testimonial or I get something, because you have to get something in return. You're not just going to meet someone and do something 100% for them free and then you get nothing back. So that's one method. You can decide, I'm willing to do a couple of free sessions. If it's photography, for example, I'm willing to do a couple of free photo shoots for people in exchange for a testimonial, in exchange for them to review my business, in exchange for them to refer me to other people who would be willing to pay. That is one method. Another method is having kind of like, let's say, a launching price. So I'm just launching my business, so I'm selling it at X amount of money. After that, I'm going to increase it, so come and buy now, come and pay for this now, before it goes back to the regular price. Another method that you can use, which is very similar to the last one, is just some kind of discount. This allows you from the very beginning for people to know exactly what you charge. So let's say you define it already, whether on your social media or your website or whatever. You're like, okay, I'm going to charge 100,000 naira for my blog package. So in other words, in exchange for me to write one blog post, you pay me 100,000 naira. However, because I'm just starting out, I'm doing a 50% sale or something like that. The reason why personally I am not always a fan of sales is because a lot of times it gives off the wrong impression to people. It's different if you say to someone, I'm starting my business right now, so I'm willing to do for the first 3 people X amount of money, as opposed to you saying the price is here, but I'm doing a sale for here. Because a lot of people are just going to be like, no, that's the normal price. You're just boosting it. It's going to give off the wrong impression on people. But at the end of the day, please understand that price is perceived. So what that means is that depending on your target audience, people can be like, this is too expensive. And another set of people will be like, this is actually very cheap. This is actually very affordable. So don't fall into the trap of fear mongering. That's just like, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. Just because one person says that it's too expensive doesn't mean that it actually is. But again, if you've done your homework from the previous step in making sure that you look around, look at what other people are doing, and you now create your own prices based on that, then you should be totally fine. So these are just some of the methods or strategies that you can use to get started with your first set of clients. Again, please don't ever do 100% free. I don't know, that has never worked for anybody in the history of business. There should be something in exchange, right? Even if you decide this is a family member, this is a friend, I don't want to charge them. Personally, I would not even say don't charge anybody, even if it's 1,000 naira, even if it's $10, there should always be some kind of exchange of money, because that kind of starts to establish you as a business owner. But even if you decide to do it 100% free, please, there should be some kind of exchange. It should be that I'm doing this for you, you're going to write a testimonial, or you're going to do a video testimonial, or you're going to refer me to somebody. There should just be something, rather than you're just doing all of this for free and you get nothing else in return. Even if you're just starting out, don't downplay yourself. Don't make it look like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to give off. There's a reason this is a talent. It is unique. It is special to you. And if you've done the very first step, it is profitable. So please don't, please don't do that. And then our final step is collect feedback and repeat. This is very important, not only for the sake of testimonials, but also for you. Remember, if you're just starting something out from scratch, you may not be the best at it. You may not be the most like perfect person at it. At every single step, you need to be collecting feedback and iterating. What that simply means is, let's say I offer my content creation services to someone. It's important that I'm able to ask them at the end of that and say, oh, how did you find the content? Did it meet your needs? Is there something that I could have done better? Is there some kind of correction? Also, from the place of, I would say, customer service, things like communication, things like responding to messages, all of these is what you want to make sure you're collecting feedback on. Maybe you are sending, your communication is a little bit sloppy. Someone can say, oh no, I would have preferred if you did this. Now, all of this is kind of, you have to take it with a grain of salt so that you don't internalize and personalize it to feel like you're a bad person or you did something wrong. No, all of this is a process. You learn from the process and then you move on to the next client, and then you learn from the process and then you move on to the next client. It is, that's why I said repeat. It's like an iterative process. You keep going round and round and round, but it's very important that you are taking in the feedback and you are getting better. The reason I say this is because one of the most important things that I can tell anyone who is thinking about starting a business or who is already a business owner is to not joke with customer service. Customer service will make the world of difference to your business. Customer service will make the difference of you having to go out and look for clients month in, month out, doing marketing, promoting yourself everywhere, trying to get all these clients in, as opposed to your clients just going ahead and promoting you. This is something I've seen happen in my own business for years. So I know how powerful it is when you don't even have to promote your services. Other people are just recommending you. And the reason for this is because from the very first year of my business, I really kind of prioritize customer service. I don't joke with it. How do I communicate with my clients? How do I get their feedback to know if I've made a mistake somewhere, if there's something that I could do better, if there's something that quite didn't work out the way that they expected it to? Oh, this service that I provided to you, was there something that you were expecting that you didn't get from me? I know that sometimes it feels scary and weird to ask these questions, but it really does make a difference in the long run, because if someone feels like you've done amazing work for them, there is no reason why they wouldn't want to recommend you to somebody else. There's really no reason. Even if the prices are high, I've had people kind of go, oh, they recommended me to someone, and then it's the person that's like, oh, your prices are a little bit high, I can't pay that, but that's fine. but that recommendation has already happened, which is free marketing on my bit. And it will save you a load of time and money rather than having to promote your services, promote your business every single day, every single month. You have other people doing that for you. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Like I said, this is more of a workshop. This is something I know that I can talk on like for hours. And to be honest, it is an entire masterclass in of itself. But this is just kind of like a mini, I've compressed it into like a mini form so that we can take, trust me, if you are able to take the 5 steps that we've taken today, you already have yourself a fully fledged business that you can start to work with. So again, first step is to narrow down your profitable talent, not just your talent, but are people willing to pay money for it. Second step is to define your ideal buyer. Who is the person that this product, this service is going to serve? Who is willing to pay money for this? Third step is to find the sweet spot. This is where you work out your entire business plan. Talk about your business model, talk about your pricing. If you want to have packages, how exactly are you going to be offering this talent or this service? The fourth step is to get started with your first set of clients, your first ever clients. Whether you decide to do the free model, whether you decide to do a sale or a discounted offer, whatever works for you, you need to start getting real life people using your service in exchange for testimonials, reviews, referrals, all of that. And then finally, you want to collect feedback on the process, right, on everything that has gone on, and then repeat the process. Please let me know if you found this helpful. As always, I would love to see your comments in the comment section. Let me know if you found this helpful. Let me know if we should do an entire, I feel like we should, if we should do an entire workshop or masterclass on this topic. Let me know some of your unique talents that you feel like you can monetize or you've been wanting to transform into a profitable business. And I'll see you in the next episode. As always, if you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to share this with anyone that has an idea, has a talent that they're trying to turn into a money-making machine. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.